Hello?
I hope to see Top Dog there. Yeah, I know it's not too far away. I think the week you're doing the Haley play, I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to be elsewhere. But I'm going to try and see Top Dog because I was in New York when it was on Broadway and won the Pulitzer.
You'll be out here.
I didn't get the chance to see it.
So that's great.
Yeah,
will it be
I'm
the same cast?
See it when it's in Cape May.
Well, it will be the same cast, and it does hit. I just realized I'm giving wrong information. Oliver's Father's Day was was one of it, and Who's Happy Now were two of his big Broadway hits. And I'll have to
say that because I was trying to be diplomatic by not saying that I knew the 5th of July was actually by Lanford Wilson.
Yes. And I was reading it the other day, and that's why it's on my mind. Well, don't be that diplomatic.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Never be that diplomatic. Just let me know. Say, no, that's wrong.
It's like, we're on my radio. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that.
No, that's fine. Father's Day and Who's Happy Now come to my mind, but he had a number of other hits as well. And then he and Betsy did a lot of television. They wrote a number of television, and they also produced a soap, and that one escapes me now. I want to say it was Guiding Light, or perhaps As the World Turns. But it was a soap that was on back in the 60s, I believe, 60s or 70s.
Right.
But they wrote and produced. In fact, that was Betsy's first writing job. Was after she was a reporter too, a journalist for a number of years. But writing for the soap opera was one of her first professional writing jobs.
Do you feel that there's much connection? Maybe connection's not the word. Do you feel that your skills as a storyteller from being a journalist inform your skills as a director and an actor?
Absolutely, no question about it. Absolutely, no question. You know what a story is, a good story, number one, and that's very important. It's also important to know good writing, and particularly when you're producing a show, it's very important to know good writing. Sometimes as a writer or a director, you may find yourself dealing with writing that's not quite as good as you'd hoped it'd be, but as a producer, you always want to, if you can, be involved with good writing. And so it's very important. Knowing structure is very important. I went to college, you're from the Midwest, to a small school called Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas.
I know
and you know it?
I know of it, yeah. I've not actually been to the campus, but I've heard it mentioned.
Well, it was a little school with a very small theater department, and but the advantage of that was tremendous and continues to make itself known, at least as far as I'm concerned, because we had to do everything. We not only had to learn to write, so we wrote some one acts. We had to learn to direct. We had to learn makeup. We had to learn to hang lights. We had to learn to build sets. We just didn't have the advantage of a department that did this or did that. And
first-hand knowledge of what all your colleagues are going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's so important, and it has proven itself time and time again. And while I am not very good at many of those things at all, I'm so glad there are lighting directors and people that know how to build sets and all of that. I'm pretty bad at all of it, but I have an understanding, and I know what they're going through.
Well, I don't want to monopolize you, but one last question before I give it back to the host or anyone else who might be on the line. But hearing at the beginning of this interview, hearing about like 27 or thereabouts different characters in one play, as an actor, how do you go about doing it? Do you create big different character traits for each of them, or do you just trust the audience to get it when you say this is who I am? And where do you make that work?
In this play, I create big character traits for each one of them. This is kind of a whimsical play to begin with, and so I feel free to make it a little cartoonish, and so for me it's a lot of fun. I'm hoping the audience will enjoy it too, but for me it's a great deal of fun. So I go as far out there as I possibly can in this piece. I try not to hold anything back and just have a great time with it because it's that kind of piece. It's very whimsical. There's a fantasy aspect to it. And now the difference with that and my solo show that I do, my one-man show, is that the one-man show is based on reality. And for that piece, although I create a different voice for most characters and different mannerisms, each one of those characters is very rooted in reality. And I take on a different persona for each one of those characters.
Wonderful. Well, I certainly hope a chance. I don't know if you're doing that one in Cape May or anywhere near New York, but, please, let OutTakes know when you're doing it, and we'll all read the blog, and, anyone who is close by to wherever you're doing it will come see it, because that sounds great.
Well, I would love you to see it, and I did do it last year, actually, in Cape May, and hopefully Roy will ask me back to do it again. We had a great time. It was over Labor Day last year, a huge audience and a great time, and I love that. And I'm certainly putting you on my list of people I'd love to run into at some time. And if you find yourself on the West Coast, come by our theater.
Sure, and there's lots of good other theaters in the tri-state area as well. So, between one coast and the other, we'll make it work.
Absolutely, and feel free to correct me anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you, Matthew. So, are you watching the daytime Emmys this weekend?
I won't be able to. Well, actually, now that I said that out loud, I may be able to. We have a social engagement, and one of the 2 or 3 reasons I didn't go to Las Vegas, we're leaving for New York a couple days after that, so I just didn't feel I could be out of town and turn around, and we also have to rehearse this show. We want to give everyone a good show when we get to Cape May. But I'm cheering on my castmates. I just emailed Ari, as a matter of fact, before you called and said, I'm going to be there rooting for you, and James and all the others. So.
Oh, I think Ari was just fabulous last year with that whole baby switch storyline. Because she did reprehensible things, and yet, at least for me as a viewer, I always knew where she was coming from. And when when Nicole lost Sydney, it was just like I was crying right along with her, even though I knew, she shouldn't have had her. But so. Well,
it's true, but I think she's just a wonderful actress. She's a good friend of mine and somebody I adore, and. Nothing would make me happier than to see her walk in next week with the Emmy.
Yeah, me too. Well, a lot of people are nominated this year, so we'll see what happens. And then also I just wanted to touch on, obviously I'm a little behind on my shows, but I know that today was particularly a heart-wrenching tearjerker episode about. Alice's death, and I was just wondering if you had any Frances Reed stories you would care to share.
Well, we all have Frances Reed stories. She was just a tremendous person. I'm so lucky. We started this interview talking about my first days on the show, and I'm so fortunate that Frances seemed to take me under her wing early on. And not only as an actress and her help in making me feel comfortable, but as a friend in the conversations that we had about old Hollywood, which she was very familiar, and politics and the show, and I'm sure most of your listeners know that she was a special person, just feisty and strong and wonderful. Excuse me for coughing there.